Well, if you were here, if you were here last week, I talked a little bit about some exciting things coming up for our church. May 17th, middle of May, it's a Sunday, and we're going to cancel church. And if you weren't here, we're going to come in. We're going to come in that morning. We're going to read maybe a scripture. I'll say a quick prayer, and then we're going to actually do some serving in our community. There's a group called Every Child that I've gotten connected with, that our church is starting to get more connected with. And the purpose of Every Child is to support our foster system. The foster system in our country is broken. The foster system in our state is broken. The foster system in our county is broken. It's not broken because there are bad people involved. It's because it's overwhelmed. And so we want to step in and fill some of that gap there. And so our heart for the 17th is that we can go. We're going to have some people go to houses of foster families and actually serve at their house. We're asking, I'm trying to gather a list right now. What can we do at their house? What's that going to look like? Is it going to be changing oil? Is it going to be painting a wall? Is it going to be doing some ironing? What can help bless somebody's life? Because we all have different things that will be a blessing to us. And so some of us are going to go to houses. Some of us are going to stay here and pack meals. And we're going to pack meals that we're going to freeze. And then we're going to be able to give to foster families when they accept a new child into their home. When they get the call, when they bring the child in, you're trying to transition the kid into their house. And so we want to make that as easy as possible, because that's going to be a difficult challenge. And so of all the things that they have to figure out and plan and line up and get organized and get settled for a new kid, one thing they won't have to worry about is dinner that night, right? We want to give them a meal that they can pull out, pop in the oven, and it's ready to go easy. And so that's coming up May 17th. I know a lot of people, in order to go to the foster families' homes to know where they live, we have to have people background check. So anyone who is interested in doing that needs to fill out a background check form and turn that in. And I've had a bunch of people. You put up Murray's picture. You got it? Yes? Sorry. There's Murray and his wife Nancy. But Murray is head of our membership team, and he is one person to talk to. If you want to fill out a form and you haven't done so, find Murray. He's usually floating around the lobby. You probably met him when you came into church. He's a good one. Also, Kat, that's her husband Jim with her. If you talk to Kat's sitting right over here in a blue hoodie. If you talk to her after church, she also can help you get a background check form filled out, and we will keep those very secure. We're being very careful with them, keeping them locked up, so you don't have to worry about your information getting out. But in order to know where foster families live, if you want to be a part of that group, that's something that you need to do. If you are interested in the food part, even beforehand, if you want to help prep, Dean and Marilyn's not here, she's not feeling good, but Dean's sitting right there. He was one of the ones up leading worship this morning. And speak to Dean today if you're interested in going, how can I help with the food aspect? Can I purchase food? Can I help set up downstairs, that week? Or what can I do to be a part? So talk to Dean if you're interested in that aspect. And then more than anything else, as this is coming along, we need to be in prayer for this. I want us as a church to be praying. What is God going to do through this? How is he going to use our church? What impact can we make in doing this? And not just this one event, but even going into the future. How can God use this to build relationships and connections with people? How can it open up doors that we might see to be able to serve and do other things? And so please be in prayer. This Tuesday, the 25th, we're actually having a day of prayer, church day of prayer. And I'm asking you specifically on that day to be in prayer for our church. And not just even for that day, that's one part of it, but for our church in many aspects. Number one is I want to pray for our church needs. We all have things in life going on, situations that are happening. Some have health problems, some have work things going on, some have relationship things going on, and there's a lot of different things, and I want to be lifting one another up in prayer. And so on Tuesday, I'm asking you to pray for your fellow church members. I'm also asking you to pray just for Newport Christian as a whole, for this church body as a whole, that God would keep us strong. Our focus this year is being united, that God would keep us united, and that God would give us guidance and direction on what He wants us to do. We don't want to just be a club that meets every week. We want to be a group of people who are trying to be God's light in the world. And so I want to be in prayer for our church as a whole, as well as individually. And I also want to be in prayer for this service day. We're calling it Neighborhood Blitz. We're going to go out and blitz the neighborhood. That's kind of fun. Please be in prayer for this day of service, of going, what can I do? What's God calling me specifically to do? What's God calling our church to do? What's going to come out of this? How is God going to use this? And just be in prayer for that. There's a packet of information. If you walk out these doors when you leave, don't do it right now. That's scary. But when you leave today, straight ahead there's a table, and on that table is a stack of papers. And there's some papers, and one paper will give you a little list of a few prayer requests that have been turned in. And that's a list I'm hoping to keep going. I'm hoping to update that every month. So if you have a prayer request you want to add to that, let me know. You can fill out a card and turn that in. You can email the church office. You can call the church office. You can talk to me on Sunday, and I'll write it down so I don't forget. But please, we want to be in prayer for one another. And specific prayer requests are better. We can be in prayer for each other generically, but when we know something that's going on in somebody's life and pray for them specifically, that is a powerful thing. And so that's on there. There's also just a list of just some ideas and thoughts on what to pray for. You're sitting there, I'm asking you to pray for a whole day. I'm not expecting you to be on your knees for 24 hours. But as you go through the day, there may be times where you pull off and actually have a posture of prayer. And you pull off to a quiet time. There may be times where you're going through life and you're around other people, or you're shopping, or you're at work, or you're doing other things, and hopefully these prayers you'll still be praying, you'll still be in relationship and speaking with God, even in the back of your mind through this day. And so there's some ideas of just things to pray for, some guides, some thoughts. One thing with this that I'm also asking you to do is I'm asking you to consider fasting on this day, on Tuesday. I'm going to be fasting on Tuesday. I'm asking you to do that with me. And fasting is one of those things that's talked about in the Bible. It's talked about quite a bit in the Bible, but we don't really do fasting too often, I don't think. Most people don't. And so I'm asking you to consider, and I know that in this room, I know that there are people who have different health things. I'm not asking you to put your health at risk. I know some people have jobs that take a little bit more physical action. And so I'm not asking you to try to starve yourself and pass out at work. That's not good. But I'm asking you to consider fasting. If it's for the entire day, great. That's awesome. If it's for 1 or 2 meals, that's awesome. That's great. If you go, I can't fast from food, but I can give up something else for 24 hours. Think about that. So there's some information in that packet as well, just about fasting. And that's something I'd like you to maybe spend tomorrow, Monday, praying about what you should be doing, what role fasting should play in your day. And I'm asking you to just really dedicate Tuesday, this Tuesday, to just prayer, to taking our congregation before the Lord and asking His blessing, asking His guidance, asking His direction on our church body. And so that's all some different stuff that's going on. I'm very excited about it. And so I'm asking you, please be in prayer. And so as I talked about, one thing that's important is unity, which helps me transition to my sermon for today, because that's what I'm talking about this morning, as I've been going through a series on unity. And in fact, why don't I just pray real quick? Why don't I lead us in a word of prayer just for this day of prayer and this day of service and for our congregation before I start my message. Lord, I thank you. I thank you for this church, and I thank you for this church that I love, and this church that I get excited to talk to people about. Lord, it's awesome. I love this group of people so much that you have blessed me with the opportunity of serving. And Lord, I pray that you would be with us, Lord, that you would use us and guide us. Help us not to just be people who sit back and watch other people do things, who sit there and hope that you work, Lord, but help us to be people who look for where you are working and who follow you. Lord, help us to be people who submit to your will. Help us to be a church that is a light in this dark world that needs your hope, Lord. I pray for this day of prayer coming up. I pray that this would be a powerful, powerful day for our church. Lord, I pray that it would be a day when we come together and we are just lifting our words up, lifting one another up to you, Lord, and I pray that you would be active on this day. Lord, I pray for May 17th, when we as a church are going to try to bless our community, bless people in our community who are really reaching out and trying to just love on kids. Lord, I pray that you would just bless that day. Help it to be a day that doesn't make our church look good, that makes you look good, that reveals just your nature to those around us, that people can see how much you love them because of the things that we do. In your name I pray. Amen. Well, we are talking, like I said, about being united as a church. And we've been looking at different metaphors for the church body, and that's one of them. That was the first one we looked at, was the body of Christ. I think that's the one I probably use the most. We also looked at being the bride of Christ. And last week we looked at being the family of God. And today I want to look at another one. This is another one pretty common, and it's being friends of God. This idea of being friends of God. In fact, I want you to flip with me. I'm in the book of John today, John chapter 15. And I want to look, starting out at verse 15. We're going to back up in a few minutes, but I want to start out looking at verse 15. John 15:15 says, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. And so we see this verse here, and it talks about being friends of God. We're no longer servants. And here's the thing, especially in the United States, but maybe everywhere, we see this word servant, and I think we look down on it, don't we? In fact, this word that's used here is the word doulos. It's a Greek word, and doulos is actually more than servant. It's actually a word that really means slave, right? And in our country, we hear that word, and appropriately so, I might add. We think horribly of the word slave, right? Slavery is terrible. This idea of a human being a possession, being owned by another human being is detestable. It's horrible. It's wicked. And so we see this word slave, and we look down on it. We think badly of this word. But here's the thing. In this context, it's not talking about being a slave of another person. It's talking about being a slave of God's. And that kind of takes on a whole different context. If you look in the Old Testament, Moses, this man of God, this man, yes, he had shortcomings, they all did. This man of God who went into Egypt, who faced down Pharaoh, who led God's people out of Egypt into freedom, who led them through the walls of the Red Sea, the parted waters on either side of them. He leads them through. They wander in the wilderness for 40 years. He feeds them through, with God's power. There's all of this amazing things. And this man of God, Moses, was called a slave of God's. And we look at Joshua, the man who took over from Moses. And Joshua, this great leader, this man who leads them into the promised land, who fights the battle of Jericho. It truly wasn't much of a fight walking around the city 3 times so everything collapses. This man of faith, and he is called a slave of God's. David, a man after God's own heart. What a title. This man who God chose to be one of his kings of his people. This man who, when he was young, fought a Philistine giant and defeated him. This man who was a great king. Yes, again, he was flawed, but he was a great king. A man who, when he was called out for his mistakes, didn't make excuses, Didn't try to brush it under the rug. Didn't try to look past it, but instead fell on his knees and begged for forgiveness. This man, David, was called a slave of God's. A slave of God. And these are great heroes of the Bible. You look in the New Testament, and you look at Paul and James, two of these godly men. And they use this word doulos, slave, for themselves. This idea of being a slave for God. They use that title on their own selves, and they use it in a good way. They're excited to be able to be called slaves of God. And we look at this word slave, and we think of this word so negatively. And again, when it's talking about a person owning another person, that is so true. But in the context of us making the choice, because it's our choice, making the choice to put ourselves in submission to God, that's an honorable thing. That's something that's amazing and incredible and is our calling as Christians. And yet God in this passage is saying, this may be seen as, these men, these great followers of me are slaves. And yet now I am calling you even to be more than that. What a gift. What a gift. He's not calling us from the depths out of high. He's calling us from an honored position even higher, to his friend. And here's the thing about friends, is that as a friend to someone, as a friend of another person, you have benefits. There are benefits to being the friend of someone else, but there are also responsibilities. In order to be a good friend, in order to have a good friend, you've got to be a good friend, right? We want the benefits of God's friendship, and we also have to be a good friend to him. And so what does that look like? I want to look today in this passage. We're going to see a couple things that as friends we get some good benefits, and a couple things that as friends we have a responsibility then to do. And so if you back up with me just a couple verses in that passage, John chapter 15, starting in verse 12 now. It says, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command." And you see, we're friends if we love. That's our first responsibility as a friend of God's, is to love him, right? Friends love each other. You care about each other. That's part of being a friend. It's one of the things that friends are supposed to do, is love one another. We're supposed to be loving to God, and not only to God, but he commands us. He says, if you're my friend, don't just love me, love each other. Because you're all my friends. You're all my people that I created. You're all my beloved children. Love one another. We're supposed to love one another. We're supposed to, and loving one another, love isn't just something that is an emotion. It's an action. And love is a choice. You choose to love someone. You make that choice, and you choose how you show that love. And love can be shown so many different ways. And he talks about laying down his life for a brother in this passage. About laying down your life for someone else. And yes, on one hand, he's talking about being willing to die for someone else, which is a huge sacrifice to think about. To think about being willing to put yourself in someone else's place and to die so that they don't have to. That is an immense sacrifice of love that Christ set the example for. But sometimes laying down your life for someone else doesn't necessarily just mean dying. It means giving up of your own desires, of your own wants, of your own plans. It's giving up your day-to-day life for someone else. It's sacrificing. I have chores. I have things of my own to do, but somebody else has stuff going on at their house. They need help. My yard needs to be mowed and my fix needs to be fenced, but Ralph he's working on his roof today. I'll give up some time to go work on his roof right now. It's giving up things in your own life to help someone else. My brother-in-law is a pastor, and when we lived in Ohio, I had a conversation with him one time. And I think he still does this. I don't know for sure. I should have asked him. But whenever we would go to someone's house, not just as a pastor, but sometimes as a friend, just to hang out or to go to somebody's house, whenever he would go to somebody's house, he would go online and he would research whatever that person cared about. So if that person was into sports, he would go online and search about sports and find out all sorts of information about sports and their favorite sports team and everything. If they were into politics, he'd research politics so that he could have a good conversation. If they were into cars or whatever, he would go online. And at first he told me this, and I thought, oh man, that's really manipulative. Like you're like going on to make yourself look like you care about something in order to like be better friends with this person. I thought, that's weird. Why didn't you just be yourself? But then I realized that he wasn't being manipulative. It wasn't that he was going online pretending to care about that person. It was that he did care about that thing simply because he cared about the person. He wanted to learn about whatever topic they were interested in so that he could have a good conversation, not because he wanted to look fake, but because he cared so much. Because he had a heart where he wanted to connect with people. He wanted to meet them where they were at. He wanted to be able to converse about their interests and let them know that he valued them. Because when you value somebody, you value what they care about, right? You care about what they care about. If you have a friend in this world, even if you don't care about something, if they're really your friend, you at least pretend to be interested in what they care about, right? You at least give it your best effort, because not that the thing is so special in and of itself to you, but you care about the person. You care about them. My wife, she likes sports. She knows I'm from San Antonio. I'm a Spurs fan. She cares about the Spurs. They're her basketball team, but it's not because of any reason except for the fact she's married to me. She loves me, and so she loves the things that I care about. That's what you do. When you have a friend, you care about them, and you care about the things they care about. And God is saying, if you love me, love my people. These are what I care about. These are what I treasure the most. More than anything else, my people are valuable. And I want you to think of them as valuable too. Love one another. Be willing to sacrifice of yourself for one another, to give up your life, the things of your life, in order to show love to each other. As a good friend, that's what you do. You show love to one another. Well, going on back to verse 15 where we started, he says, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. And you see, now that we are no longer servants, we are friends, we get a benefit. We have a responsibility to love one another. We have a benefit in that we have access to insider information. We get to see God's plan. That doesn't mean we know all of the details all the time. That doesn't mean sometimes we don't struggle, but we get to know what God is doing in this world. He includes us in part of his plan. We are part of that. There's nothing hidden from us. There's no secrets, as there would be for a servant. Now, Audrey and I used to watch, maybe I shouldn't admit this, Audrey and I used to watch that show Downton Abbey. And anybody else in here Downton Abbey fans? Yeah. Watch the first episode or two and you're like, this is kind of a weird show. And then you watch 3 or 4 and you go, this is addicting. Really great show. It's very intriguing. And then the show, if you haven't seen it, it's a show over, it's over in Europe, it's on PBS. It's not anymore, sorry. Maybe you find it. But it's this family that owns a big house. Actually, they own this big property. And their whole responsibility, they're so wealthy, their whole job is to take care of this property. That's their job. In order to do that, they're wealthy. It's in the early 1900s. And in order to do that, they have servants who help take care of them and the property. And they have these servants that do everything for them, especially at the beginning of the show. As it progresses through the years, they get a little bit more self-sufficient. But at the beginning of the show especially, they have all these servants. They have butlers, and they have people downstairs who are cooks, and they have people who are fixing the fire, people who are cleaning this and doing that, going here. They have people, and this, in our day and age, this seems so strange to me. They have people who help them get dressed, right? And here's these people, and they're servants. So they come in, and their job is to help them get dressed, make sure they're ready, make sure their jewelry's right, make sure everything's perfect, everything looks sharp, there's no wrinkles. And here they are. I mean, what more personal situation can you be in than someone helping you put your clothes on? And yet they're just servants. And they treat them politely, they care about their servants, they're very nice to them, but you can see that when there's a private, intimate conversation, the servants aren't included. Sometimes as the show goes on, you can see some of those friendships between master or mistress and servant start developing to where it's more than just that relationship. It actually is a friendship, and you can see access to information become more aware, more open, because you don't share everything with the hired help. You keep some walls. They don't get access to everything. Only friends are included in the most private, intimate conversations, the most secretive discussions. Those are kept separate from the servants. You see, we're not servants anymore. We get to be friends of God. So we get to be included in that inner conversation. We get to know things. We get to have the Holy Spirit inside of us, guiding us and directing us, giving us insider information, because we aren't servants anymore. We're friends of God. And that is an amazing benefit of being God's friend. It's an amazing gift that we have been given. Verse 16 says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit. Fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you." And we see here both a responsibility as a friend and a benefit. The first thing is, we are to be ambassadors. If you are a friend of someone, you are kind of their ambassador. Your job is to make them look good. We want to make our friends look good. That's what a good friend does anyway. If you go around trashing your friends behind their back, you might not be a good friend. Just spoiler alert. Our job as Christians, and it's easy for God, it's easy to make God look good because the guy's perfect. In fact, his biggest flaw is the fact that we are his friends. Isn't that true? I mean, it is true. And so our job is to go out and do the best that we can to bring his light into the world and to be his ambassador, to bear fruit, to bring other people into that friendship with him. We're to be his ambassador. We're supposed to make God look good to the best of our ability. That's an important calling of us as friends. I used to have a friend in college, and we were roommates for about 2 years. Great guy, wonderful guy. I'm a slob. I'm not a slob. I like things organized. I like things neat. Yes, to a fault, too much, but I like things organized. And we would have this, and we had a dorm room. We shared a dorm room. And you know what? Honestly, his side could be a mess. I didn't care. It didn't bother me as long as it didn't cross that center line of the room. Do what you want over there. It's fine. As long as my side is organized. But every Thursday night in our dorm, We would have room checks where our resident assistant, the guy in charge of the door of the floor, would walk through all the rooms and make sure that we kept them organized and cleaned up. And it was kind of more important than it should have. It shouldn't have been a big deal, but the dorm parents that we had were very sticklers about it. They cared very much that your room was clean. And inevitably, every Thursday night, my buddy, my roommate, my friend, had something going on. And he wasn't there. He had a girlfriend, so he'd be out on a date with his girlfriend, or he was part of a band, so he'd be practicing with his band. Whatever it was, every Thursday night it seemed like he'd be gone. And so I would watch the clock, and I would be seeing, and it would get closer and closer to when I knew that the resident assistant was going to stick his head in the door. And about 30 minutes before the resident assistant would come in, I would start cleaning up my buddy's room real quick. And I'd toss everything in the closet and shut the door and hope it didn't fall open. Stuff under the bed, make the bed. And then he would come by, stick his head in. Oh, everything looks good. You guys are so good. And walk off. I can be honest, my buddy did cover for me once or twice too. But usually I was covering for him. I didn't care. He's my friend. And I wanted to make him look good. I didn't want him to get in trouble. I didn't want him to make him look bad. If you have a friend, you want them to look good. When you talk to somebody about your friend, you want them to think your friend is the greatest. There was an old guy, wonderful elderly gentleman. He did ministry. I did ministry with him in Arizona. And he did ministry to elderly people. And you would meet him, and if you would talk to him, he would ask you, have you met my wife? And if you said no, he would say, well, then you haven't lived. I love that. I always wanted to say that, but I always forget about saying that. I love that phrase because he loved his wife so much. Yeah, you haven't really experienced life unless you have met my wife. And that's the kind of friend we should be. Have you met my God? No, then you haven't lived. That's the kind of God I serve. This amazing, loving God who desires friendship with me and with you. You haven't met him, you haven't lived. And we're to be his ambassadors. We're supposed to go out in the world and shine his light. That's one of our responsibilities as God's friend. And then the second half of that verse, going back to it, verse 16, says, so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. And this is talking about prayer. And here's the thing about this passage on prayer. Prayer is powerful. We're having this day of prayer on Tuesday. And prayer is powerful. And sometimes if you look at a passage, you look at a verse like this out of context, you can run with it, right? Whatever you ask in my name, woo, that's awesome. God will give you whatever you ask. I can go wild with that. 3 wishes, right? You have to look at a passage like this in context because prayer is so powerful and God does answer our prayer. And the first thing is you look at this verse that says, whatever you ask in my name, it has to be in Jesus' name. That doesn't mean you put his name at the end of your prayer in Jesus' name, amen. That's a good thing to do. It's not a little stamp of approval, a magic phrase that makes your prayer have power. It's praying literally in Christ's name, through him. That's what that's talking about here. In the Garden of Eden, when Jesus went out to pray right before he was arrested, he went before God and he said, God, I will do this. Please take this cup from me. But not my will, but yours. And you see, when we pray, we also have to understand that we are submissive to God's will. We have to pray in faith. Another thing the Bible talks about is prayers done in faith. You have to pray through faith. And the last thing, there's a passage that talks about, it's right before the verse that says, where 2 or more are gathered, there am I in the midst of them. It's the verse right before that. And it says that, if 2 people are in agreement, I will do whatever they ask. And it's not this idea of if you can get enough people praying about one certain thing, That then, again, it's a magic system that will open the door. It's this idea that prayers should be selfless. Prayers shouldn't just be thinking about ourselves. It should be people thinking about one another. And yes, God will give us whatever we ask. We have to understand what he's saying there. And we have to look in context of the entire Bible to understand that prayer is so powerful. And it's an amazing gift and it's an amazing tool that God has given us. And he's given us guidelines on how to make that work. On what that looks like. On what prayer can do. And so as a friend, we get benefits. We have responsibilities. We get the benefit of insider information. We get the benefit of the power of prayer. We also have responsibilities. We have responsibilities to love him, to love one another. We have the responsibility of being his ambassador for the world. In fact, he even closes this passage out in verse 17. He says, "This is my command. Love each other." And you see, if we love one another, so many of the other things fall under that. If you think about being an ambassador for Christ, what better way to make God look good than for us to overwhelmingly love one another in his name? Right? If we want to be people who really are a light to this world, what better way than to show his love? We've been given this gift of friendship. And every single metaphor we've looked at this month it's kind of been interesting. There's been two components. There's been the individual component, the things that we should do between us and God. Right? As the church body, as the church bride, as the family of God, as the friends of God, there are things that we have to do individually, but there are also things that we have to do together. Because we're a group, because we're in this together, we should be united. We are connected. Whether we have anything at all in common or not, we are connected by our Savior. And his ultimate command, as he looks down on us, is to love one another. If you're my friends, you're all my friends, then this is how you need to respond in love. Being willing to lay down your own life, to go to that extreme, whether it means to the extreme of dying for a brother or sister in Christ, or whether it means the extreme of laying down your own thoughts, your own plans, your own desires, your own strategy, and being willing to help someone else in theirs. Love one another. Because we are the church. And we are friends of God's, and that's what friends do. Let's pray. Father, I thank you